Hello, everybody. Happy Tuesday. Welcome
Tuesday.
back.
Yes.
We
Among
are
the living.
thrilled. The May is among the living this week. Thank you all so much for your kind words. Saw some hysterical emails last week wishing you well and
I'm fine.
surmising where your illness came
I'm
from.
kind of fine.
But we're back.
We're back. I'm kind of fine.
You're great. You're
I'm
great.
physically fine. I'm not mentally fine, but I'm physically
Well,
fine.
actually, good. I mean,
It's a good segue.
It's a great segue because that's
Yeah.
what we're going to talk about today. But, I laugh. We do this every Tuesday, right? We're sitting in these chairs. And as the last recap of our previous session goes up, our producer, Sean, over here says, I'm making your mics live. We will have been silently sitting here. Mics go live. And then Jeff says something every time.
Always.
And I'm sure people hear it.
I can't help myself.
You can't help yourself. And then I become like a mother, and I'm like, shh.
I was that way as a kid.
You were?
Yeah. As soon as I was supposed to behave is when I usually misbehaved.
Did you laugh at funerals? Do you laugh at funerals?
Do I laugh at funerals? What a great question. I don't. But I definitely have inappropriate responses to different things.
Me
so
too.
I understand people who do.
Yes.
I understand the compulsion to laugh when you shouldn't laugh.
That is me at all times.
But it's funny because I can think of a funeral I went to of a very close relative where something tickled me at the actual event, and I remember feeling so guilty I felt that. But yeah, it is. I have strange responses to anxious moments. ...
Us live here, and exactly what we're talking about today.
Yes.
We're talking about anxiety. You know, it's interesting. I feel like we've always kind of woven in some element of mental health and mental wellness into our conversations, especially when we talk about fear and especially when we talk about hope, because I do think it's such an authentic part of the sales process. And today, when Jeff and I were talking about what we wanted to cover, I said, 2 weeks ago when we were here, we talked about how Q2 is just a huge quarter for us in sales, and one of those quarters that can be a game changer regardless of whether or not you call it your Q2. But this time chunk that we are sitting in right now is going to be a great accelerator for you if you don't let things like anxiety and fear and stress get in the way. So when we were talking about what we wanted to discuss today, I said, let's talk about how to handle moments of stress. How can we assert our dominance? How can we regain control of situations where we feel like the person that we're dealing with is getting the upper hand? And I mean, show of hands, how many of you are working a deal right now where you feel like your buyer has the upper hand? Go ahead. No one can see you. Okay, I see hands. Yeah, I just finished one.
I know.
I mean,
I have one that might finish me.
Yeah. Touche. The hands are flying up right now, and that's exactly what we want to talk about is how do you in those moments do that reset? And we're going to talk, I kind of like built out a couple of scenarios, but it's not just limited to our buyers. It's also it also extends to the people that we interact with daily, our colleagues, our boss, our family, our friends.
Sure.
So,
I'm feeling it. I mean, I love that we're talking about this. It's going to be physician heal thyself, because this whole week since last Tuesday, so I felt better on Wednesday. A little stomach poisoning, no big deal, but it meant I couldn't obviously shoot. But I don't know. What happens when you feel anxiety, at least for me, and I think other people too, is, if you're a type A person and you're a fulfilled person and you're more about action than reaction, that when you feel anxiety, like this desperate need to find the source. What's making me anxious? And then if I know what's making me anxious, I can maybe look at it differently or maybe think about it differently or do something different. But the truth is, a lot of times anxiety doesn't have a host. It just happens, at least for me, and I think for other people too. And when that happens, for people in sales, anxiety has a whole new level of friction because, boy, acting in an anxious state virtually guarantees failure for us.
your buyers smell it.
Oh my God.
That anxiety you
ever?
feel when you send out a contract and you don't hear back from the buyer for days, weeks, months, and you do that following in, checking up, even if you're using things like the assumptive close after you've been through one of our classes and what are some other ways I could kind of restoke the flames of this fire, they feel some level of desperation because that's where anxiety goes. You get that stress, you get that anxiety. If it's not acted upon correctly, it completely turns into desperation on the other end because We're in sales. We're
It does.
word people.
It does.
And then we're so consumed with explaining ourselves.
Yeah, and then when anxiety creeps into self-doubt or questioning our motives or questioning our actions, I mean, it feeds on itself in such a horrible way. And I see it all the time. You said quarter two. We were talking 2 weeks ago about the importance of quarter two, the magic of April to June. If you weren't with us, check out the replay on YouTube, because it's really interesting. This weird thing that happens with our psychological framing. April still got maybe some ice on the windshield. June 30th is close to July 4th. And when you threaten the idea of excusing yourself from the sales process until next quarter is the end of the summer.
Right.
So we can really use that to really put anxiety on the laps of our prospect. And when you know it, now I'm feeling it. Then the truth is, I mean, we can say this honestly. I mean, our April is already the best month we've had this calendar year.
Totally.
It's not even half over. So
Totally.
we know how great this quarter is, and yet, and it can become larger than it should be, and it shows up in weird places. It shows up when we negotiate. Shows up when we're chasing the opportunities post proof of concept, all that stuff that happens after a demo or trial. We get like a false urgency. We start to chase. That chase then kind of communicates itself to the prospect that we're uncertain, which gives them a stronger footing. And then all of a sudden, things that had a command of, we lose a command of. All kind of adds to the anxiety.
Yeah.
So having some tactics is probably smart to deal with.
It's smart.
This.
I think if you don't have the tactics, you do what so many of us do, which is you create your own narrative to try and see around corners or try and understand why you're in the position you're in. And this is true in every aspect of our lives.
Yeah.
But it becomes this place of, well, he didn't respond. I saw that they had this event. So maybe if there's this event that's coming up, they were probably busy doing this. So I'm going to wait until the event's over. I'll give them a day. And you start creating your own narrative in your timeline that actually has nothing to do with the person that you're dealing with.
But now it's reality.
But it's your reality.
And that's a skill.
Ooh, this is deep.
Yeah,
shit.
well, yeah, it's a character trait that serves us so well as salespeople when we are dealing with the uncertain. But when anxiety's in there, you're right. We're going to create a narrative that is based in fiction. It's based on feelings, and it's based on fearful feelings. And then what we come up with as this is what's happening becomes reality. And then we respond to an anxious reality. It's not even real. So I'm going to start with that. That's the first thing we're going to do.
Yeah.
First thing we're going to do is we got to stop telling ourselves stories.
Stop.
I know I'm doing that now. It's like, this is not where we embrace how smart we are. This is where we embrace the child in us that every day is new. This is the first thing I'm going to do. I'm doing it now, feeling anxiety around opportunities and just around other things. I am not going to have the answer right now. I am not going to try to look beyond the edge of my nose. So I am not going to be super sleuth the way I normally am. I'm not going to be looking at, well, what else is going on in this guy's company? Or let me see some posts she's done on LinkedIn to give me a sense of where she is on other things. I'm not going to indulge my Columbo.
Yeah.
In fact, I'm going to be like, I don't know and I'll never know. That's the first thing I'm going to do is I want to deal with the anxiety right here, not right there.
Yes.
Because this is already screwed up. So let me just deal with this. And that's going to start to dictate how I act on certain deals.
It gives you the opportunity to just deal with things in a little bit of a box, which is what you need to do. Yeah. So, okay, let's play off of that. Let's talk about it within the context of a situation. Okay. About a good, 20 people raised their hand at least when I asked that question about who's working a deal now where they feel like their buyer has the upper hand.
Yeah.
What do you do in a situation where you're working a deal, you're at negotiation, and you feel like every time you're negotiating with your buyer, they're taking you for a run for your money?
Yes. Like you hit the ball over the tennis net, and they don't just return it. They return it and hit another ball.
Yes.
So it's like we thought we outboxed that issue, and now it showed up again alongside a new issue.
Something new.
Yes. I can't forget control this conversation. I can't even successfully feel like I've outboxed anything in this negotiation, and it happens.
Yes.
So the first thing I'm going to do is, and I take this from Muhammad Ali, the great, late great heavyweight prize fighter. So many great things written about his career. So many things we can learn about from his approach. If you see the great movie When We Were Kings, check it on YouTube. It's a story of him when he fought George Foreman in the outside in I think Zaire, and was faced with a younger, stronger, bigger, more terrifying opponent. Everyone's theory was that he was going to try to tire out George Foreman because he was a little lighter and was a little quicker on his feet, maybe danced around the ring, get him tired out. And when you watch the movie, you find out what he does. That's not his approach. His approach was the opposite. His approach was to actually get real close and actually start to endure horrible punches. And you realize at first, second, or third round, you think he's going to die. You think he's crazy. But then as the fight goes on, you see what his theory was. It's like, you know what? You throw a punch, it requires energy. Just like absorbing a punch requires energy. So if I can hold on long enough, I think I can tire him out, not by dancing around the ring, but by absorbing. So that's one of the things I'm going to do in a situation like this. You've got an opportunity where it's like it's unraveling the negotiation, where whatever kind of control you had over gives and gets, or whatever your theory is on negotiation, that's gone, and now it's like you don't even know which tennis ball to hit back. I'm going to lean into that uncertainty. How do I do that? When I bring any kind of element into the negotiation, we're going to change it from net 30 to net 60. And then the customer comes back and says, okay, we can do net 60, but we're going to need the SLA to say this. And the SLA was something we've already done. I'm going to accept the SLA, but reject the change in the net terms. Meaning, I'm only going to hit one thing at a time, and it's going to be the hardest throw you give me, not the lightest throw. So if you're going to change something we have negotiated, that is now more severe than negotiating a new element. So if you're going to throw something new at me that I thought we outboxed, okay, I'll take the hit. So I thought we were going net 30 to net 60, and now we're going to net 90, and I'm going to say, okay, but take what I've just offered off the table, meaning I will concede it without the if I get this, you get this. I'm just going to say you get this. Why? Because by conceding this new punch, I'm seeing basically how important the new element is. Because I'm no longer negotiating element B, I'm back to element A. The idea is that when you give me things that I don't like and don't understand, I'm going to accept them as, okay, we'll do it this way, but I can't get my head around anything new. Only this one thing we're talking about. It forces the prospect to, although they'll feel tremendous glee and satisfaction in getting what they wanted, to realizing that they're getting what they wanted, but they're not advancing the deal to closure. You see, at the end of the day, all negotiation has to have one thing in the room or it doesn't work. Both parties have to agree that there is value in a common destination. That we both are getting in a boat that decides that that marker is where we both want to go. I want to go there for these reasons. You want to go there for these reasons. It's okay if one of us has stronger or weaker reasons, but we both have to agree that wherever we're headed, we're
headed to the same place and we like it.
We like it.
Exactly.
And so what happens is, all right, fine, I'll give you this thing that I think is not going to help my cause or not going to be a great deal for me. But if I don't advance the boat's voyage when I accept a concession, then all the customer's holding is a yes to what? A yes to a deal that's still a mile away from closing. It's forcing the customer to make a decision. Is the destination truly valuable to me? Because if it's valuable to me, maybe winning the battle and losing the war is not a great idea. But I can only get the customer there if I lean into that punch. Because if I try to dance around that punch, you get in that game where the customer is just fighting these little battles with you in the negotiation as the boat's getting closure because I'm trying to close the deal. Now I'm conceding things without advancing the deal, and it's putting the prospect in a weird position of, what the hell am I doing here?
Totally. I think, a lot of people are sitting here thinking like, okay, this all makes sense, but I have to go get approval from people in order to make concessions or to allow things to happen. And I think for so many of us, that's where you feel like, I just lost. The fact that I can't say yes or no to you on the phone right now, I just feel my social value freaking plummet.
So there's a place we can fix that, and that's another thing that we do with anxiety, I think, too, is sometimes if I'm in a deal like that and I'm getting a back and forth on an element, let's say in the terms and conditions. This is a good place to bring in a colleague, maybe like someone in legal, and have them, kind of work out the legal language and even say, look, we're going to concede on this. It's okay for us to give on it, but don't be on the phone when it happens. Don't be on the email exchange, and don't have an obvious place where your lawyer colleague hands the stick back to you.
Yeah.
Meaning, careful what you wish for, customer. You want to go back and forth in terms and conditions? Well, here's my terms and conditions guy. I'm out working other deals right now. And as you guys are working this out, you have more questions. You're not getting me. See, you wanted to get this element of the contract, so you're now getting my proxy. You want me back in this? I'll come back when I feel like coming back. The illusion is that I am more advanced now on other deals. I'm basically telling the prospect, this feels like a distraction. This feels like this isn't real. I am fine wasting my lawyer's time. I don't want to waste my time. You want to negotiate, because when they start negotiating price and the attorney's like, look, I don't talk price. I mean, it's between you and the rep. But you're not on the phone call, you're starting to elevate yourself back into the mix.
Exactly.
Access to you has to be a value. So the inclination when we feel anxiety is to get in there and grab more. Well, maybe sometimes in the anxiety moments, we have to let go and let our own access to us become something new they want back. So if they feel like they're hitting their head against the wall because they want to go pricing and all they're doing is talking to a lawyer, then my reappearance might have value it didn't have before.
I think that that's a great point. And if you're like, hey, I don't have a legal person that I can pull into deals, maybe go find a colleague, someone who shares your title, shares your level that you can then just go back and forth and be that kind of person by proxy on their deals and vice versa. Because it gives you first the space you need. If you are in a negotiation with your buyer all day, every day, you're good luck with your mental health. I mean, it's draining, it's exhausting. So to have another person in the mix, oh my God, it's amazing. And it introduces that level of social value back in.
I love it. I call it, I did it at work, and Cece and I do this for each other.
Yeah.
We call it an anxiety buddy.
Yeah.
It's like this deal has gotten so crazy. And I feel like my social value is in the toilet.
Yeah.
And I don't even know which end is up. And meanwhile, I'm being dragged around by my nose on hesits. Hey, Cece, I'm giving you the deal. Can you just work on it and give it back to me later? And I'll say to the prospect, look, I've got a million things going on, or I'm out of the office, or blah, blah, blah. Cece's really great. And I'll introduce Cece into the role and vice versa. And Cece has no anxiety of this deal. It's not even hers. On top of it, she's not bringing in the history or any of the nonsense.
Yeah.
So she can walk in with high social value. And I can get the hell out of there for a while because I really need to. The longer you engage in an anxious state, the longer you'll stay anxious.
And distance makes the heart grow fonder.
So have an anxiety buddy. It doesn't have to be a lawyer. It can just be anyone you work with that you trust their sales skills. Say, look, you're a great sales rep. I've worked with you for a while. I trust. Geez, I mean, work it. I'm a mess in this deal. Why don't you work it? You got. And I'm sure you'll have one down the road where you're freaking out about, and give it to me. Boy, it really keeps. The customer can't do that.
No, they can't.
Customer doesn't have a customer buddy because they're the ones buying it.
Exactly.
So that's another way you can do it. I know it sounds weird, but yeah, I mean, why not?
I also think there was a big mental shift that we made and you taught me about a long time ago. And for the early day fans of Tuesdays with Hoffman, you might remember some sessions on this. We talked about negotiation. I guess this was back in 2020. And you said in a negotiation, you can either win or you can be right.
Yeah.
And that has that was genius. And that has transformed the way that I approach every single one of these situations. When I feel like I'm bumping up against someone, it's like, okay, at the end of the day, is this a place where I need to be right? Or is this a place where I need to win? And I think that if you're talking about a sale, well, what do we want? We want to win. Right. We don't need to be right on it. So I think that eases some of that anxiety of having to maintain that composure all the way through. You can concede on things and not lose social value. Yeah. As long as it ultimately ends in the resolution where you get to win on the deal. But I don't think that that's always the same with other interactions. So let's talk about another scenario here.
Sure.
What about in a scenario with your boss?
Oh.
And you have a boss that's not setting clear expectations or is expecting something from you that you feel like you can't deliver on, and that becomes a source of anxiety where you feel like you have no social value. Yeah. You can do show of hands here. If you can't see each other. I want to know who has this situation. They might be in a room with our boss right now watching this. Yeah, I know.
Which is cool. So this one's easier for me to deal with, anxiety from customers, for whatever reason. Anxiety from colleagues and peers and bosses. Clearly when it's around expectations. I always take the vantage point of, okay, I'm going to micromanage my boss now.
Yeah.
Which means, now I can't manage them, but I'm going to basically create a world where they're micromanaging me and not realizing it. They probably didn't sign up for this, but I'm going to force their hand. Meaning, I am now going to be checking in with my boss every step of the journey. Every step of the journey, and I will create the expectation of how the conversation goes, meaning if Cece's my boss and I'm not getting great direction or I'm getting a cloudy view of the world or changing expectations. Instead of me arguing that or trying to go, hey, Cece, can you tell me what you're really trying to achieve here? Or I'm not sure I follow. None of that. Just agree with everything they say and say, great, I'm going to check in with you after when I reach out to the customer. And they'll go, great. And then what I'll do is I'll say, okay, well, here's the email I'm going to write. Can you approve it? And they'll go, yeah, that's fine. And then I'll say, well, and I'm going to let you know what happens. Great. And then the next day I'll go, okay, I haven't heard back. Should I email or call her? Should I call someone else? I am going to force them to micromanage me. And by doing so, I'm going to find out really quickly if I already know there's some problems with their direction. Is the problem with direction limited to me, or are they really a mess?
Yeah.
Because their reaction to this is going to tell me a lot. If they start to get really frustrated at this approach, I can now start to introduce some remedies. Like, I'll tell you what, you don't like me doing this all the time, I can do this. I don't need to check in with you all the time. What I need to know from you is, if I don't hit this KPI by April, what happens?
Yeah.
Or you could start to then revisit what some of the expectations are, but understanding that you're not going to give me expectations, then this is what you get in response. I am not going to work blindly for you. So either you tell me where we're headed this month, this quarter, this year, or you'll tell me where we're headed by lunch, or you'll tell me where we're headed in the next 10 minutes. Because you are the captain, and I'm not removing your responsibility of it. I am anxious enough being on this boat.
Yep.
I didn't sign up to steer it.
Yes.
So that's
and
one
I
thing
think
I'll do.
though, by doing that, it's not just to get your manager in line, but it also ends up being a really great way for you to. Where does anxiety comes from? It comes from lack of control. Everything that we're talking about is lack of control. So now you get to micromanage not just your boss, but yourself in these moments. And as Jeff said earlier, sometimes it's just about figuring out what is right in front of me. What's the next thing I need to do? We like to call it clear and present danger. That's our term for it internally here. And that's exactly how you should be thinking about this. What's the clear and present danger? What's the next hurdle that I have to get over, or the next thing I have to drive to? And if you can do that, oh my God, watch the anxiety melt away.
Yeah, removing the clear and present danger not only satisfies you getting through it, it gives you some purpose when you're feeling anxious. When everything is like, I don't even know which way to look. I'm looking at this thing. I said this earlier. I'm going to look right in front of my nose.
Yep.
What is the thing right in front of my nose that if it doesn't get changed or fixed, doesn't matter. Everything else is going to fall apart. It doesn't matter if there's 100 things to fix. Just pick not the worst one, not the biggest one, the closest one, the one that's right up against it. Unless this is fixed on our website, unless this is fixed in our product set, unless this is fixed in how many people I get to this event, if I got to figure out what is the next domino that's going to get in my way of success, whatever that is, it can be very calming. So I think that's important too.
Okay, 3 hacks.
Ooh.
I've got 2. Do you have one?
I don't know yet. On what?
On how, 3 hacks. That was mean. I just totally set you up for failure on that.
That's right.
And I said 3 really when I only had 2. And I just was like, I hope he comes up with a 3rd.
But I might.
I'll give you my 2 hacks for dealing with anxiety or for being really smart about managing these moments.
Yeah, I got one.
Number 1, in these moments where you're trying to redirect or engage with a buyer or micromanage your own manager, no euphemisms. You want clarity, you want to eliminate anxiety, eliminate euphemisms, be direct in your language. Also, be assertive, meaning give your conclusion first and only when asked, provide additional context. This is something we talk about all the time. We talk about it in our programs like Start the Deal, but this is huge in terms of managing moments of anxiety and stress and really asserting dominance and getting that upper hand back. If you can just speak with a conclusion and then, if asked, provide additional context, you'll watch your social value climb.
That's good.
My famous example of this is canceling plans.
Yes.
If you're canceling plans, don't give the whole explainer first. Just we have to make a rain. I need a rain check.
Yep. Don't explain it.
Don't explain it. And if they're like, oh no, sorry, is everyththing okay? That's when you explain it.
But lead with the conclusion.
Lead with the conclusion.
That's good.
And no euphemisms in the process.
I like it. I'll tell you one I use, and it's stolen from a Hindu proverb. 5 blind men encounter an elephant. 5 blind wise men encounter an elephant. They reach their hand out, they touch the elephant, but only one part of the elephant, and then they announce what it is. They feel the tail. One guy feels the tail. He says, oh, this is a snake. And then another guy touches the ear. Oh, it's a big leaf. Another one touches the leg. It's a tree trunk, a tree stump, a tree. What's the point of the parable? The point of the parable is they're smart, but they're blind, which means great conclusions, faulty premise. So I want to touch a different part of the elephant. So what does that mean? For me with deals, I like to when I'm really feeling freaked out, I will let a deal go silent. I will not engage. I will either do it formally by getting someone in legal or an anxiety buddy involved, or if they're like forcing me to chase them, I'll just let it kind of slow down and leave it alone. And as I let it leave it alone, I then assume the deal's going to close. I was looking at the wrong camera. There we go. I assume the deal is going to close, but I assume the deal is going to close with someone I haven't met yet. And then while this is quieted with my prospect to silence, I start innocent conversations with total strangers in the account. I touch another part of the elephant. I don't know why this works, but it does. It doesn't mean I find a new buyer or, oh my God, I learned something, I took it back. No, there's something about energy that I've been hitting this wall. Maybe all I need to do is walk a little around the corner and crack open a window. And by cracking open that window, that wall, all of a sudden, oh, there's a door there. Like there's something about if you hit the same problem with the same hammer enough times, you'll basically embolden the anxiety. You'll make the gatekeeper stronger. So how about disengage and seeing where other gatekeepers are? Because I've rarely encountered a deal where it's surrounded by gatekeepers.
Totally.
Just usually one right in front. So I'll let it die. I'll start a new conversation, and lo and behold, if that thing doesn't get life again. So that's a hack I use a lot.
I like that.
Yeah.
Look, you did come through with that third hack. All right, record time.
That was good.
That was a different one.
I am so excited about these records.
Oh, great. What's your theme?
So I was born in the 60s, was a kid in the 70s, and was a teenager in the 80s. So which means I was informed by 80s music, even though if you know enough about the records I pick, they're pretty out there. But I do like my 80s pop. I think it's underappreciated. And a lot of stuff on Netflix and a lot of stuff streaming today, they're really bringing back a lot of this 80s pop. So I have 5, it's all my 80s buddies. I've top 5 one-hit wonder albums from the 80s.
Love it.
Meaning it's like they only had really one album, but it's so delicious that I still listen to it. So here we go. Number 5, Thomas Dolby's The Golden Age of Wireless. She bonded me with science. That's a terrible way of singing. What a goofy ass song. Sean's laughing over there. This is a goofy song on a goofy record. It still holds up. Thomas Dolby gives like nerdy guys like me in the 80s the idea that I could be a rock star. I mean, look at Thomas Dolby.
Oh, man.
Very fun album, Thomas Dolby. Number 4, a little tragic end to the lead singer here, but the Big Country. Can you see this? Yeah, Big Country. This is like U2 light. They're from Scotland, not Ireland.
Okay.
Everything about them is a little lighter than U2. One album, name of the band is the name of the song. I always dig those, Big Country. Really fun. Like, if you like U2 and you remember a band used to call The Alarm from Wales, they're kind of like this, Big Country, really fun. Early MTV stuff. Now, if you watch MTV or you watch the YouTube from MTV, you'll remember, we used to joke calling them the Flock of Haircuts. Flock of Seagulls.
Flock of Seagulls.
And I Ran. One of the most glorious, delicious videos of all time. Still holds up. They're on a tour now, and I kind of want to see them. Flock of Seagulls original album. They have other albums too. I know you 80s fans know it's not the only album they did, but it's a really fun one. So that's a good one to play. Number 2, I think the best band from the 80s that doesn't get love, you say it was Duran Duran. I'm going with Culture Club. I mean, my God. Look at all the nonsense today.
People like Flock of Seagulls.
Yeah, before this is the original.
Oh, yes, Culture Club. Yeah,
kind of gender like identity and just these guys were huge at a time where it was like Reagan. So you'd be surprised. Culture Club's great. Kissing to Be Clever. What a great album. And then number 1. I love this album so much. The 80s didn't just give us hair bands and synthesizers. The 80s also introduced to America reggae. So a lot of like if you listen to like The Police or The Clash, they brought a lot of reggae beats, a lot of reggae kind of rhythms into their music, and all these ska bands, all these British bands started to do it. And this is without a doubt my favorite. Only one album. And I'm the only one in America, I think, that bought their box set. Jeez. Haircut 100, Pelican West. I played it.
People knew.
I played it this morning.
You did?
Well, I feel anxiety. I've not been feeling good. So I played this. I was dancing around my living room.
I like
it. At 8:30 this morning. I'm like, oh, yeah. Every song on this is delicious candy. Do yourself a favor and stream Haircut 100. I promise you'll go. The next big hit from a Netflix show will be coming from this record.
Well,
That's
actually,
what
I was just going to say, I told Jeff earlier as we wrap here, my recommendation this week is to watch Daisy Jones and the Six. If people
haven't seen
haven't
it yet.
watched it or read it, and in it, it's about a 70s band, and you see a little nod to the 80s when they go to a club at night and they see like what the next
changes.
generation of music. They're like, we're going to be dinosaurs.
I mean, I was 13 when MTV arrived. I mean, imagine if you're my age, and a lot of us people watch our. I mean, it really informed us, and it was like, whoa! It was like the movement from disco and punk to what really became. It had to be like visual candy as much as listenable. But it's amazing how much of this holds up, and I still do play some 80s music. So.
Well, that was good.
Yeah, and I feel
Excellent.
better.
We'll see you all next week.
Yes.
Thanks so much for joining today. Happy Tuesday, folks.
Happy therapy. I mean, happy selling.